And so the first one we're going to welcome to the stage is Shane. And Shane's at Swept AI, and he's actually helping to create evaluations and to improve the quality of AI, which is something that we hear from all of our clients. So we're working on our partnership and integrating their services, and he has a lot of experience on how to make sure AI doesn't fail. So we're going to hear about that today. So welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Scott. So good news is we test drove this talk, I don't know, a couple weeks ago virtually, learned a whole bunch and wildly changed it around so we can give you a lot more actionable stuff. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to try to go fast. So who am I? Shane Emmons, founder and CEO of Swept AI. We do evals. Ultimately, we are about adding a trust layer to AI. So wherever you're developing it and deploying it, especially when it's in high-risk environments, healthcare, fintech, that kind of stuff, it's done right. My co-founder Amy's here as well. If you have questions, feel free to find us throughout the week. So we're going to talk about 10 different ways they fail, and I get to cheat, and half of these you can say you're using Chipp, you're already going to solve these mostly. But the first one here is the ideation phase, the idea. Sometimes we have trouble finding that idea. What exactly are we going to use AI for? Or we have this task to use it. And if we're stuck, one of the great things is Chipp templates, or today, if I get a chance and I go fast enough, I used the generator that they showed today and shoved it through Swept so we could actually see how well these generators do. But again, it's just trying to get idea. We've heard a couple times now. Get out there, try stuff. It starts connecting the dots. There's a lot more to do with AI than just simply acting as a chatbot. The next one, proof of concept. We're not even going to belabor this at all. So it's very hard to do that when you're in ChatGPT and Claude. You can build those custom GPTs. You can start building artifacts. Chipp is purpose-built for this. You're all here for that. Great one. It's the one we keep sending our clients who are asking us, can you build something custom? No, go to Chipp. Much easier. Next one is specifications. And this is nice now because we do have the automations that are in place for the templates and that. But a lot of times we see people really struggling to get in. They've got their ripened model, but they're not taking the time to give enough examples. This is probably the biggest mistake we all make. Get 3, 10 high-quality end-to-end examples. Make sure you're teaching it how to say, I don't know, if you're running a RAG system or you have a huge amount of context and don't want to make up stuff. But this is the one where I see people get lazy and they go and say, ChatGPT or Chipp, give me some examples that I can put in here. Don't do that. It's going to create this worse and worse version of your system. This is where your human touch and your understanding of what you want is your number one problem and the thing that you have to solve. So don't skimp on this. In our early days when we were providing services, this was the place our clients always gave up, and they'd come to us and go, did you read your examples? They're not even close to right. Let's get to it. So take the time here. You'll get a lot better Swept results as well as if you take the time. So next, requirements gathering. Chipp really solves this for you, but this is a lot of places where people struggle when they're trying to get their, you can load up your context, but now we have the website scrolling that Chipp is doing. They're doing inside the documents. I had to do that today, which was very cool for us. Uploading all those documents and starting to build these custom integrations, especially into your existing tools. This is the place where, again, people kind of shortcut. They don't think through everything that my agent could have and just take the time. Granted, Chipp is thinking ahead of you for all this and hopefully just going into there and voting up the things that it doesn't have yet. But this is where your bot becomes something more than just a memory of what's been done, goes beyond chat. But take the time, think it through. Ping Scott and Hunter when you have something that it can't quite do yet. Hunter's chained tool calls, extremely cool, something that is desperately needed elsewhere. Now this is the one where, especially when you're doing anything with these legacy systems here, where how do you augment the system? I heard Hunter lament talking about MCP all the time, and that is the reality of MCP is barely anything for us. Talking about being able to communicate to these existing things is not that interesting. What's interesting is when we start building the context of how those older systems are done. So I've seen it today in a lot of examples where it's using multiple tool calls and you're teaching it how to go those steps. This is one, again, you can use Swept's tools to actually help you here, but as well as Chipp's. But this is the one where you have to understand and remember that these agents you're building don't have the context of what it is they do. They see a bunch of tools, they're going to use them because they love using tools. They see a hammer, they just want to swing it. So you've really got to build into this context of what should be there, take away what it doesn't need. I found some interesting thing auditing some of the stuff in Chipp right now where there's a bunch of tools where I don't think this bot needs this tool. And it's getting confused because of it. But again, this is one where when we're sitting there trying to augment our existing software, we have to give it the full context of what it is it's trying to do, not just giving it a bunch of tools and saying, figure it out. That's just not going to solve it for your really big cases where you want to be in the 95th, 99th percentile of getting this thing right. Implementation, not a big deal here at all. We're working with Chipp. So this is where you can take your prototype to production practically with just button clicks. But being able to take it from that, I was on the plane, I generated a bunch of them, and now I need to get this production ready. Chipp already does that pretty well for you, but if you have to use other solutions for some other reason, you really have to think through there. Again, we don't have to belabor this. If I was somewhere else, I'd have to sell them on Chipp. We're not selling Chipp today. This assessment and optimization, this is really SWEP's bread and butter. It's the thing we care the most about. It's where the trust layer comes into the system. So we had an earlier discussion where we were talking about kind of testing, and I would call that the manual testing. We're trying to figure out how many tests, how many experiments we're going to run. And we talked about edge cases there. When you're working with software that we used to develop, we could figure out all the edge cases. There's only so many ways. When you build a website that is a form for registering for soccer, it can go wrong, or right for that matter. When we're dealing with an underlying LLM to the system, the edge cases are essentially infinite. There is no way for you to imagine every edge case that's out there. And that's what SWEP's doing, and hopefully we'll actually do a demo given the speed I'm going right now, where it goes and it reads through your system and tries to understand it, and then it's going to try to break it. It's going to do every weird thing that your users could possibly come up with, as well as all the good things in the different ways they might ask, because you can't quite predict when you're giving a free-form entry into these systems what it is they're going to do to ask how to study their Bible or how to get help with the tarot cards or whatever it might be. They can enter it in a million different ways. And so this becomes a lot more important, and it's really where we pay attention when you're in that healthcare space. If you're talking about somebody tapping an NFC on the table there to get information about their medication, you sure better hope that you've tested this machine enough to understand the way that person asked it is going to be responded to well, or it's not just going to make stuff up. So good news is, especially the way we work, you don't have to have a lot of examples here yourself. We can extrapolate it out, but you do have to start there. It can't just be completely from, well, take that back. We can start from scratch on some of it, which we'll show you later. Next, difficulty, releasing, scaling. I'm sure Scott and Hunter have had trouble, but hopefully you haven't had to deal with too much of how you scale these systems. But that is one that is extremely hard. And then when you start to think about scaling, it's not just thinking about the machines, do I have enough response time? When we're talking about looking through those chat logs or all the tags that we might do of the system detecting stuff, how are you going to do it when you have 58,000 people who have used it or 1 million people have used it and you've got to comb through? That's where agents like SWEP going through and surfacing things, it's the fancy term in the AI will be the human on the loop versus in the loop. How do you get the systems to bring up information to you so that you can perform it without having to look into thousands and thousands of logs? Because let's be honest, we're all lazy, we're going to miss stuff. We're not going to do it. Using tools like this is going to give us that confidence to do it and to come up with new ideas. I hadn't seen the tags that they're releasing where you can go through and essentially tag or search for harm in that system. How do you know that your slider has made sure it's going to, when a kid says something in character AI right now where they're going to self-harm, how do you know it's going to do that? How do you know it's going to catch that? SWEPT, these assessments can actually go through there and do far better than we're going to do when we're talking about tens of thousands of users in here. we just said most of this. I probably jumped ahead a little bit. But when we're into the monitoring phase, we talked about human in the loop versus on loop. I'm not going to belabor that. But we do have to remember, too, when we're putting it out in the world, we need to monitor because your systems do something called drift, which all that means is it's going to start acting differently based on new people coming in. And especially the other thing everybody's going to have to come to terms with and learn, but it's cool that's getting, is memory. Memory now is going to change your context every time it runs, and it will behave differently every single time a new memory is made. And so being able to monitor and assess and do these things and make sure that your system is potentially, cross your fingers, doing better as it's getting memory, but potentially it's doing worse or it's getting pigeonholed to something. So being able to have ways to automatically check, make sure you're doing that, and know that your system no longer starts from scratch every day when it starts a new conversation. It has history and memory, and it starts to develop bias that you wouldn't expect. You need places in here as you're doing it for production. And finally, this is always the last, but the trick is this should be the first thing you're doing. So a lot of times right now you're hearing people saying, I need to use AI, we're going to build something, it doesn't matter, we're going to pick the favorite thing we want to do and just get it released. If we're not measuring the ROI from day one of what it is, these projects are going to fail because we're going to have to work backwards into what it's doing, especially as you are agencies there. You're contracted, it's going, and now they're like, well, did that cost actually justify? Spend the time doing this up front. Chipp's got a great little cost-saving thing that we use to show other people. But just go back and do this number one. There is so many people today that want to use AI, they get it, and then they start looking at those usage costs they're asking you, and then they're like, wait a second, how is this worth it? You're losing if you have to say how it's worth it versus just reinforcing it all the time. So I think I blazed through enough that I can actually demo what the heck it is. Yes. What it is, what we do. So we have started, we'll call it an alpha/beta partnership with Chipp, where we're doing two main things right now. So first, we're taking all those templates, everything that Chipp has, and we're able to assess them and tell you how good of a starting place they are or what you have to watch out for because they potentially have missing context that you need to fill in. And the other thing we can do is we can take any Chipp agent that's out there and do an automated analysis and immediately tell you, well, not immediately. It takes a while to talk to some of your agents. But we sit there through well, I'm just going to say it. We have a full agentic system that sits there and talks through. You'll start seeing your logs fill up with our system, trying to learn your system and then trying to break it and telling you where it fails. So let's see if we can demo this. So this dwell script, I just clicked off the Chipp homepage, had it build it in a few minutes, and said, good. So with Swept, we'll probably automate this eventually with Hunter when he gets in one of his 3 machines there. But all we do, we grab that share link right here, and then we scroll down, grab that API key, and we go over into our Chipp bot, and I'll show you without actually doing it for a second. But we paste those 2 things in and say, good look, buddy. In 15 minutes or so, it comes back and tells us how well is it? How well does this system perform? So in this case, this is dwell script. We can go read what it is, but it's a real estate listing bot that was on one of the suggestions, and it will go here and start to evaluate, and it's going to tell you how well does it follow instructions. I'm testing its boundaries, making sure that it doesn't go out of the spaces of where it's supposed to be. Is it consistent? Multi-turn, when we're having, probably the biggest thing I see people make mistakes right now is they want their agent to ask 15 questions in a row instead of ask the 15 questions in one go. And so how well does your system go with multi-coherence here? And so the fun thing right there is we go and we essentially socially engineer it to tell it everything that it's supposed to be able to do slowly. And then we sit here and check and see every single thing. I'm not going to scroll and look at it, but you can see what it's actually failing at, how long it took to test, what's the drift. This has a major drift one. It's not too surprising given what we were trying to do to it. But then we can look as well as we have some of the more critical or good examples of templates that have been hand-tuned versus just rolling out of there. and go through and see it. The marketing agent, it's a great agent, 3.7. It's never going to get a 4.0 because it does the one cardinal sin of telling me exactly what it does. But that's that. So hopefully all of this is to give you, first and foremost, a sense of all those failure points, but really to think when you're getting closer to production, you're getting more and more critical details, that you're taking the time to actually think about the assessment and monitoring and getting these right. Hopefully you're just doing it automatically with Chipp and Swept, but if you're doing it elsewhere, make sure you're taking the time, because most people don't, and then we have some pretty big disasters on our hands, which is why Swept was even formed. But I think that's 15, and I'm done.